من ساو باولو بحييكم، وتحديدا من امام منزل روبرتو دويليبي، شخصيه مميزه برازيليه من اصل لبناني، بيملك اكبر شركه اعلانات بامريكا اللاتينيه، كما انه كاتب وعنده ميزات كثيره. خلينا سوا نتعرف عليه عن قريب. Mr. Roberto Duailibi, it's a great pleasure and honor to be here in your house in Sao Paulo. You are a Brazilian advertising executive from Lebanese descent. You were born in Campo Grande in 1935.
Yes.
And your father emigrated from Zahle in early 20s. And he left Paris, where he studied pharmacology. And he came to Campo Grande to open a shop of textiles. Tell us more about his story and yours.
Yes, Karen, be welcome to my apartment here in São Paulo. And the team of the Lebanese television, nice people that have worked hard to mount this scenery, you know. And you are welcome here. We'll have a view of São Paulo, where we live. And let me tell you very quickly about my family. We were 7 kids of a couple, Wadi Galeb Duailibi and Cecilia Fadu Duailibi. My mother was born in São Paulo, but she was bred in Beirut, in Baghdad. Her father was married with an Italian lady from Venice, Ada Vianello, and he have lived in São Paulo before. You know, he have come to São Paulo in 1880 or 89. He was one of the pioneers. My father came in the 20s to São Paulo. He studied in Paris. His family was from Zahle, and they work in jewelry. I had an uncle called Aziz Duailibi, that at the time was the president of an association of jewelers in Damascus. He worked in Zahle, but sold all over Lebanon and in Damascus. And so they were traditionally of in the jewelry branch. My father knows very well stones, and he was formed in Paris in pharmacology and specialized in essences. So when he came to Brazil, he represented Coty, the French company. Then after some years here in São Paulo, he married. He knows my mother here in São Paulo. And then he moved with his son that was born here to Rio. Rio was at the time the capital of Brazil, a very rich city at the time. And he had a store there. Then my second sister was born in Rio. And then they returned to São Paulo again and decided to move to Campo Grande, Mato Grosso, because at the time he had a textile company that made uniforms for the army. And he was very near a revolutionary general here in São Paulo, General Klinger, that was named to Mato Grosso. And so my father transferred his factory to Mato Grosso to continue producing uniforms to the army.
And this is where you were born, I think.
Yeah, I was born in the middle of the jungle, really. And at the time, we had, not near our house, but in surroundings of the city, jaguars. And we know that they attacked cattle, you know, they were predators. And I have even...
you have one here.
This is the kind of animal.
Oh, you lived like Tarzan in the jungle.
In the jungle. No, at the time it was really jungle, you know. And even we were so near to Paraguay that in this small city if you see in the interior of the country, we spoke Portuguese, Spanish, because of the Paraguayans and Argentinians. We spoke Arabic because of the Lebanese that were already there. We spoke Guarani, that was the language of the Indians, and French. You see, it's a phenomenon in a very small city in the middle of the jungle, a very polyphonic city, you know.
With many cultures.
And because of the priests, the Salesian priests, a lot of people spoke Italian too. And you see that this is a multicultural thing that you can see in this area of colonization of Brazil. At the time, we were 5 kids in Mato Grosso. And then my mother had 2 more, 7 kids in the 30s, in the middle of the jungle. That's why I think that we should exalt the work of the Lebanese woman in Brazil, sometimes as much as the men or more. So many Lebanese women were alone with a lot of kids, and they have to maintain themselves and the kids. They should be praised, and somebody have to write the story of many of them. Yes, and maybe that was the reason why the first institutions that the Syrians and Lebanese created in São Paulo, for example, were orphanage. Because the men, in general, can't survive in those very tough circumstances.
But not women.
Yeah, and that's a part of the story that we praise the people who are today doctors, business people, bankers, but they have come from very humble origins, you know, and very hard circumstances.
You have 3 brothers and 3 sisters. How did you get with each other when you were kids? Were you friends? Were you fighting?
No, we were friends, of course, as all family. Yeah. Sometimes we had arguments, and my mother was very tough on that. You know, she never permitted that the brothers fight with each other. But we were lucky to have a good school there in Campo Grande, in the middle of the jungle of the Salesian priests. And we studied there, all the brothers.
In Portuguese language?
In Portuguese language. And so we spoke Spanish in the streets because at the time we had no radio in Portuguese that come to Campo Grande. So we heard the radios from Buenos Aires. We had a radio in Spanish in Campo Grande. Then in Rio was founded the Radio Nacional that started transmitting in Portuguese. I still remember the commercials of the Buenos Aires radio, you know. Mejora, mejor, mejoral, mejoral, mejora, mejor.
This influenced you later in your work. Yeah. That's why you were interested in advertising.
Yes. That was part of my memory that people have no here in São Paulo, and that was an advantage for me.
Did your parents speak Arabic in your presence, and did you learn Arabic when you were a kid?
No, my parents speak Arabic between them and with the cousins that have other. And Arabic was at the time the language of arguments, because in the community there were people pro-Allies and pro-Germany, you know, and they fight each other in Arabic. So people couldn't understand.
And children too, maybe. Sometimes yeah. Parents don't want children to understand what they're talking about.
And we rejected it. And I would say that it's a loss. So this is part of the saga of the Lebanese in Brazil. They were everywhere, in the Amazon, in Acre, that's near Ecuador, in the southern part of the country, in the west, in Rio, in São Paulo, fighting to survive and able to educate their kids. And that was the big difference, you know. It was a kind of paranoia to have a diploma. Between all of them, it was a kind of status to have a kid in this school.
So you didn't learn Arabic because in your mind it was the language for fighting.
Yeah.
And till now you don't understand at all Arabic.
No, there is even a kind of psychological rejection. It's phenomenal. I tried many times to learn, but after you are an adult, you can't learn again, unless you live in a place where the only solution is to speak Arabic. And in a way, unfortunately, the language become irrelevant for the descendants. And that's a pity, because a language more is always very useful. But I think here in the West we concentrated 40 years ago in French, and now English. English is the universal language for us.
And I know that you speak many languages. You speak French, English, Portuguese, Italian,
Spanish.
And Spanish.
Spanish is my second language. I speak very well.
Okay. Did you spend some time in your parents' shop? Because I read that you were always there looking at the magazines, at the advertisements.
Yes, we spend most of the time at our store and on other stores of cousins. And a big time in the school and a big time in the streets. We had a happy childhood. We understand that it was very tough for the parents, but for the kids that was fantastic.
It was entertaining.
Yeah.
ولد روبرتو دوايليبي سنة 1935 بكامبو جراندي، واستقروا أهله سنة 1923 وافتتحوا متجر، ومن صغره اهتم كثير بالعلاقات العامة وأيضا بالإعلانات. خليكم معنا لنكتشف أكثر عن مسيرته المهنية من بعد البريك الإعلاني.
You started working at 16 years old when your parents moved to Sao Paulo.
No, I started working before.
Before even.
I started working in the store of my uncle Jose, that had a big store at the time. And I was admitted there to learn. And I believe I was 12 at the time.
Already.
Because that was a vocation, people of Lebanese descendants they worked with people they know, and work for minors was not forbidden at the time, so we could
work and earn money.
Yeah,
not just having
a very
fun.
small money, of course, but because the focus was to study, and in the meantime, we could help not only my family but other families too.
And you came to Sao Paulo?
Yes, we came to Sao Paulo when I was 12, because my 18 years old brother died serving the army in Mato Grosso. And my parents were so shocked with the death of my brother that they decided to move to Sao Paulo definitely. Because my father come to Sao Paulo at least each 2 months, to buy ingredients for the food, the Arab food that we cultivated, and the other families also cultivated. So the interchange between Sao Paulo and Mato Grosso was very intense. At the time, the president of Brazil was a guy called Getúlio Vargas, that was much against São Paulo because São Paulo rebelled against him. And, but he had a big influence, because of the war. Foreign language were forbidden in Brazil at the time. So the regions where the German colonization, they were forbidden to speak German. The people from Italian colonization were forbidden to speak Italian, and the Japanese suffered a lot also. But they were forced to speak Portuguese. And to the schools and the name of the streets, everything, And I think that
so it was a kind of dictatorship.
Yeah, we were in war with the Axis. And in a way, this was good for the country, because we had in the southern part of Brazil radio station that transmitted in German all the time. So they were forced to transmit in Portuguese and put Brazilian music instead of German music. And the schools, they teach it in German. I studied in a school that was the Deutschschule Vila Mariana here in São Paulo, that became Benjamin Constant School, at the name of a Brazilian minister of the past. So that was a big change in the character of the country. It became Brazilian through a decree, let me say that, because Brazilian was at the time the northern part of the country, but the southern part of the country of German and Italian colonization were another country.
And you worked in many advertising agencies. Before you opened yours, you worked in CIN, McCann Erickson,
J.
W. Thompson. Why did you decide to open then your company with other two partners?
Yes, in advertising, you can't stay in one agency for long.
Yes, I know, because I'm into advertising.
Yeah, when you receive invitation from other agencies, this means that you are good in what you are doing. I was always dedicated to copywriting. I still am good on writing.
Yes, of course, you are a big writer.
And I still can survive from my profession. I worked in many agencies, always in the creative side. And in 1968, we were here in Brazil in a very tough economic situation. Nobody was paying, nobody was, and we lived in a kind of virtual, So I did a lot of freelancing at the time. I was chief copywriter at J. Walter Thompson, considered at the time the best salary in Brazil. Then I moved to Standard, that's today Ogilvy. And when I was at Ogilvy, as vice president of creative services, I was too much involved in administration, and that was against my nature.
Yeah, because you like to create, you don't like to be an executive.
Saragossa and the Petit have a small studio called the Metro 3 that was very advanced, and they were looking for somebody to be creative. I was doing a lot of freelance of writing for them, so I started to look for somebody to be the administrative kind of a man for the agency and for the studio. And they refused everybody. So Saragossa said, "Why don't you accept this to be partner?" And at the time, that was a very hard choice. I spoke with my wife, and Sylvia said, "Well, I have savings for 3 years. You can try." So I said, "Okay, let me try." And I accepted the invitation. We started very modest with a few clients, but always profitable. It's from the beginning, a small profit, but enough to
Cover all your
survive.
expenses, yeah.
And then after 3 years of hard work, showing the work for a lot of clients, we obtained our first big client, that was the Itaú Bank. At the time, the second largest bank in Brazil. And that was 43 years ago, and we still have the Itaú Bank. So I believe that we are doing a good work.
DPZ is today the best advertising company, not only in Brazil, but in Latin America. During these 43 years, what are the most important projects you did, especially that you have created brands and mascots?
Yeah, so we are proud of created some brands, launched some products, but I am most proud of the change in mentality of the Brazilian people relating to products. You know, when we start, there was a lot of prejudice against buying and having things. I remember at the time only 5% of the population brushed their teeth. It's
Only 5% brushed their teeth?
Yeah. So this means that not only because they don't have money, because they have prejudice against to be well, you know, to be well dressed,
to be clean. This is
to
hygiene.
Travel. Virtues were associated with suffering, really. And I think that advertising have played an important role on showing people that you can live well, you can be well, you can treat well your health, you can have dreams, and you can realize them. I would say that was not a work only of advertising, but in Brazil mainly of TV Globo, the freedom that television had from the beginning, in soap operas, in shows, in music. That was a media that was a revolution in the country.
Of course, so that's why the development of advertising was also going along with the TV revolution.
I think that our biggest contribution was to make commercials that were made with professionalism, you know, with good taste, instead of people just crying, buy, or music that was aggressive. We were able to have good casting, good copy, good music, good sequences that were more convincing as sales tool than the one that's aggressive, the hard sell kind of commercial.
Of course.
And we were successful on this philosophy.
Mm-hmm. I know that you yourself and your partners believed in a slogan which is truth, originality, good taste, and morality.
Yeah, the last part of is very important. We were known as an honest agency that do not give things to the advertising managers or other people. We proposed to survive only through our competence.
Mm-hmm. I understand.
And the people started to see us after 46 years. We still maintain this image. We are based on truth, originality, good taste, and morals.
Yeah, indeed. And what did your advertising agency, DPZ, which stands for Duailibi, Petit, and Zaragoza, what did you add in the market?
Well, we have a law that rules our profession, and I fought for this law, you know, because in a way it was not a totally free initiative. We have rules, and this is another kind of this is another side of my job, you know, to make everybody follow the law. And I think that this was an influence with the support of the media that was very important in our image.
Yes. And you received many prizes.
Yeah.
Too.
We are three
You were
partners.
rewarded.
We are three partners. Two of them are graphic artists. I would say that Petit was the most important graphic artist in Brazil, and Saragossa is the most intuitive. He's a genius. And I have my contribution as a copywriter.
Of course.
You know. And what I feel is that the three of us have some kind of empathy, that sometimes one word is enough to produce a good idea. We praise planning, we look very much for research, but we believe in intuition too.
You are considered today one of the best publicists in the world, and you were the creator of the communication school at the São Paulo University. You were elected twice president of the Brazilian Association for the Advertising Agencies, and you are a consultant to the Foundation BNL in São Paulo and the president of the Cultural Foundation of the Brazilian Army.
Yeah, not at the same time.
Not at the same time.
Not at the same
I
time.
guess, because so many
No,
responsibilities.
I do a lot of pro bono work,
Yes,
you know.
and tell us very quickly about how it happened and if you were praised.
Yes, I think that, of course, you have to make pro bono work, because when you feel that there is a problem somewhere and they have no money to pay to have a good advertising, you have to work freely.
Of course.
And I am proud of the work in the hospital, this Syrio-Lebanese hospital. I am proud of the Biennale. That's there, of course, the largest exhibition of art in Latin America. And of course, I take a pleasure from doing this work. That's the reason why I am involved with so many things. And the work for the army, for example, that's free also, is because the army, we were persecuted by the army in the 60s, do you know?
I
And
know,
today
yes,
they run
I know.
after us looking for help. And the army have played a very important role in Brazilian history, building fortresses, occupying the territory, and they have a lot of things in the cultural area to make. So I decided to restore fortresses and obtain the support of the local populations for things that were touristic and history too, you know. And I am proud of the work. We have a very good symphonic orchestra that's wonderful, you know, and educational works, but mainly in advertising. The advertising school is really very, very good. We selected the best professors. We pay well. We have 90,000 students.
Oh, it's a big number.
Yeah, and it's a very prosperous institution. Education in Brazil is big business.
Education is big business,
Yes.
especially now, lately.
Yes.
You are a very famous writer. You have written many books, especially about advertising.
Yes.
Is it a passion for you to write?
Yes, because it, in a way, it appears spontaneously. I do that well, but to write is a hard job, I would say. You have, in Portuguese, we have a saying that says, from Machado de Assis, that says, to write is a question of sitting the accents. And in a way, it's true. You have to have time, you have to be isolated. People see you reading or writing, and that it looks like you are doing nothing, you know, and are prone to interrupt you, and that's something that you should be very, very isolated.
Yes, and to
produce.
concentrate on the work.
Yeah, and I love quotations. I have 8 books about good quotations, not this kind of moral quotation, you know, and they are very successful in Brazil.
So you have an application on Apple Store. It's about advertising, or it's about
No,
your
one
company?
is about marketing.
About marketing.
It's what I call the heuristic rule. That's very useful for planning, because it makes questions. You know, it stimulates questions, and creativity is to make questions, to ask questions. And the other one is about the quotations. Very well done, and very successful, both of them. I am amazed with this new media.
Yes, indeed.
I love printed material,
You like
but
printed,
still applications are growing.
Of course, you said already 42,000
Yes.
people who...
And you have all the subjects that you can imagine, you know.
انتقل روبرتو دويليبي إلى ساو باولو سنة 1946 وبدأ العمل بعمر صغير، ومن بعد ما حاز على دراسات عليا بالإعلانات وعلوم السياسية والاجتماعية بدأ العمل بشركات مهمة للإعلانات، وسنة 1968 افتتح شركته الخاصة اللي هي اليوم من أهم شركات الإعلان بالعالم. إذا بدكم تعرفوا أكثر عن حياته العائلية خليكم معنا من بعد البريك.
Sensual, tão linda, tão perfeita, nunca vi ninguém igual.
Let's talk about your family. I met Sylvia, your lovely, beautiful wife. You've been married for 54 years now. Tell us more about how you met her, the love story, and does she support you in all your career?
I was working at Colgate Palmolive, the advertising department at the time, and then one day this girl entered the office to be a candidate to secretary. That's a very normal love story, you know, boy meet girl, girl meet boy. And she was, at the time, she studied at the Mackenzie School and coming from the German school. And after some time, we introduced to my family, and I was introduced to her family. And at the time, her mother, that was very closed in the German community, was worried with a new guy she was introducing to her house, and I asked her, "Is he dark?" And she said, "Yes, he have black hair." And her mother was very nervous at the time, and you can understand the
Yes,
prejudices of one generation.
She's worried.
And when I was introduced, I was, of course, dark, but under the expectations of her mother, and we went very well.
She supported you in your career. She was there,
Yes,
maybe
she was always
giving you some advice.
Yes, she, of course, she's a professional too in advertising. She still have an agency, its own agency.
Yeah, she told me she has her own agency.
Yeah, and she understands very well what I do, and she administers very well the finances of the house. And I do not know what is, because she's so competent. And we got along very well after so many years. And fortunately, I think we are exceptions. I was best man of many marriages in the last years, and few marriages survived.
You are a father of 2 boys. They are twins. Were you happy when you heard that you're going to be a father?
Yes, when I heard that I was going to be a father, I was happy. But during the birth itself, the doctor didn't tell Sylvia that she had twins to avoid he become too nervous, you know. And it was a surprise. I discovered that in the maternity hospital, and it was a real surprise for me.
A happy surprise? Or you were like worried that
No, I was 25 at the time, and not prepared to have twins, and we decided to stop on the twins, you know. But after that, I was very happy. It's two boys.
And did you spend some time with them when they were kids? How is your relationship?
A very good relationship, but I was an absent parent. I worked so hard. And we were lucky that we were living in a house neighbor to my to Mr. Hans and Dona Frida.
Ah, okay.
And so
you were living next to your
she helped
her parents.
They speak German.
Yeah.
You see that this is the relationship between the grandmother and the boys was so close that they today speak German very well. And she helped a lot, Sylvia. Sylvia was very dedicated, and this permitted me to be, fortunately, absent and dedicated to the work, because I worked hard always.
I know. This is what I heard from all the men I met, all the personalities. They were always saying, we are an absent parent, and my wife, she did all the work. And now, are you close to them?
Now I believe we are closer because we are neighbors too. I moved to this apartment to be close to them. We are not close enough, I would say, because in a city like São Paulo, it's very difficult to be close, but we are friends, and this is important.
Of course. I know that one of your sons is into advertising too.
Yes.
Yes, but not in... It's weird because he's not working in DPZ.
No, because at DPZ we have a rule that says that the partners can't have
their relatives. Ah, okay. And is your son as successful as his father?
Yes, he worked at DPZ, but he's a car collector, and he's his passion. The other one is a jeweler from the beginning. He's always worked in...
Like his grandfather?
Yeah, like his grandfather. And he never worked at DPZ. And he's a successful jeweler. And so they are different in terms of professions. And we still maintain a very good relationship. We have lunch together every Sunday. And sometimes...
Very Lebanese.
Yeah, very Lebanese. My wife, in this sense, is... despite the fact of being of German origin, is very Lebanese.
And she loves Lebanese. Yeah. She told me about that. Do you talk with them about their Lebanese origins?
Yes, I talk a lot to them about the father, the grandfather, the great-grandfather, so they know their origin, and they have a lot of friends that belong to the community, or don't belong to the community because there is no cohesion, in fact. I think there is cohesion in the club and in some places, but in general, in the city in general, everybody is considered Brazilian here. And this generation, the actual generation of descendants, knows nothing about Lebanon or about who was their grandfathers or great-grandfathers, and the West press is much against Arabs in general, and there is a demonization of Arabs in general, and they feel that they are Arabs or Lebanese, and there is a confusion between who is Lebanese, who is Arab, if Lebanese is Arab, and it's a sociological problem for them in their own definition. So they prefer to feel and to behave like Brazilians.
لو كانت انشغالاته كثيرة لقى وقت روبرتو دويليبي ليتعرف على زوجته ويأسس عائلة وهو متعلق فيها كثير مثل كل لبناني. إذا بدكم تعرفوا أكثر عن علاقاته مع لبنان وكم مرة زاره خليكم معنا من بعد الفاصل.
Procure, você será bem recompensado.
Kaiser, uma grande cerveja. A cerveja dos momentos felizes.
You established in 1970 a hub for research about Lebanese immigrants. And this is because you love much Lebanon.
Yes,
and
I do.
You called it the Center for Studies on Lebanese Immigration. Why did you start it, and what do you offer as services?
Yeah, let me tell the story of the Center for the Study of the Lebanese Immigration. When I was at the sociology school, at the time, we talked about networks. You see, this happened 50 years ago, and the concept of networks was already existing. And I remember that I worked at an agency that was the largest airline in Brazil, was completing 15 years of the first flight between Rio and São Paulo. And we have to make an ad for that, and we don't have the list of passengers. But we were able to restore the list, asking the survivors, who you remember was in this flight? And I said, I remember the name one of the other, and then we go to this name, and we were able to restore the network of passengers for the ad. And I said, why don't I do that for my own family? I personally know 10 Duailibis, but I know there are a lot more. Who are they? Where are they? What are they doing? From where they come? What is the story of their families? So I decided to make a research on the ones that I know. Who more you know? And they answered. The answers were very good in terms of statistic. And I know the name of one, the name of other, where they are. So we started to reconstruct the family in the country, because after 2 generations, there are Duailibis in the Maranhão state, in the up north of the country. There were in Rio, there were in São Paulo, there were in Mato Grosso. So I started to write to all of them and reconstruct. And this was a very nice sociological experience, not genealogical experience. Not looking for nobility or something, but the story of those immigrants and where they are today after 4 generations.
It's very interesting.
So
but you also elaborated into other families.
Yes, yes, completely integrated. So instead of publishing a book, that was the original intention, we decided to make a site. It started with Orkut, that today still exists, but it's not more important. But the site was very successful in terms of knowing where they are, what they are doing. It was a Facebook, an original Facebook for one family only.
So anybody who needs to know about his origins, if he's of
Yeah,
Lebanese
they can
descent, can
access.
come to the center and
Yeah.
know more about it.
Yes, we are open with an agenda, of course, but we are open. We receive a lot of visits, not only from the family, but from Lebanese family
from
in
Lebanese
general.
families
People
also. You
love to go there.
You have visited Lebanon twice,
Yes.
and once with your wife, who loved it a lot.
Yes, she wanted
she talked
to buy
about
a house in
Baalbek
Juni.
and
She fell in love by
She
Juni
wa-
and the Shuf.
And the Shuf,
Still
yeah.
dream with the Shuf.
she told me she wanted to buy a land there.
Yes.
Would you?
Well, I would say that I am so busy. We have house in Rio. We have a house in Rio, another one in the beach in Guarujá, and one in New York. So we have 4 houses. To have 5 houses is unbearable.
You can sell one here in Brazil and buy one in Lebanon.
Yeah, that's
This
a
is
dream.
would
That's
be a
dream.
great thing. So maybe you can visit
Yes,
at
I
least
feel that,
once every 2 years Lebanon.
Yes, I feel that if I go there to a place that's mine, I love the hotels there. I would feel home.
Of course.
Then I will learn Arabic.
You should. It's never too late. Did you visit Zahle when you went?
Yes, very much. We stayed in Zahle last time.
And you saw some of your relatives?
Yes, we stayed in Zahle. We hired a driver and a history professor, a lady called Colette, who lived in Zahle, and she was our guide, very competent. We were able to visit all Lebanon with a professor that explained each details of where we were, the history of the place, and it was
All the
very
sites.
wonderful.
Yeah. How do you know that personally I find that advertising in Lebanon is really successful and
Yes, it's very well done.
is very well. And what
it's
do you
a-
think about our advertising agencies
I-
and our creativity?
Yes, today all advertising are global, not only Lebanon, but in all West and in Europe. We are today global. We sold our agents to the group Publicis. And we fight against that all our life, but in the end. And what I feel is that Lebanese advertising people is very competent. They are, I would say, the seed for the rest of advertising people in all Middle East.
Yes, indeed. And they have many rewards whenever they go to the
we
United
went-
States or to Europe or even in other
we went to
Arab
a
countries.
Congress in Egypt, and the production in Egypt is very good. The scenery, the scenery city, and advertising is a profession that make possible the use of talent everywhere.
Indeed. If you had to advertise Lebanon in a slogan, because you are a copywriter, what would you say?
It's very hard because there are so many good things to tell about and many people. I think that's where you find that everybody is a brother. And despite the differences, etc., that we can't understand very well, you know, the parties,
It's
sects.
complicated politics.
At least I don't know much, but I would say that landscape, air, food, and mainly people.
Do you have a last word that you would love to say to all the Lebanese who are watching us tonight in Lebanon and all over the world?
Yes, after I started to accept and to study my Lebanese origin, I was able to belong to many associations of Lebanese people all over the world. And today, wherever I go, I find a friend. last time I was in Belo Horizonte, for example, the capital of Minas Gerais, and it's unbelievable how you feel that when you know you have the addresses of some Lebanese people or Lebanese origin people, immediately there is a kind of brotherhood, and we share the same table, we'll share stories, and mainly we share the love of the place, that we have to maintain Lebanon as it's in our dreams, in our memories.
Of course. Roberto Duailibi, thank you for this wonderful interview. And we hope to see you in Lebanon. Maybe I will help you buy the land.
Thank you.
And we will make Sylvia happy about it.
Yes, that's our last objective.
Thank you again.
Thank you, Karin. And thank you for the team of the Lebanese television that after some moments together, I can feel that it is very competent.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
تعرفنا اليوم مع روبرتو دويليبي، وهو رجل مميز غير بمعالم الإعلان القرن ال21، كما أنه أكد لنا أنه اللبناني متعدد المواهب.
Em Ipanema, jogar assim, Copacabana, jogar pra mim, pode ver nas ruas e nos bares.
إذا بدكم تعرفوا أكثر عن هالحلقة أو عن روبرتو دويليبي تابعونا على مواقع التواصل الاجتماعي. ما تنسوا تتابعونا بحلقة جديدة الأسبوع القادم بنفس الوقت تكتشفوا اسم جديد من أسماء من التاريخ.